Did you know that you're not really as free as you'd like to believe? I know you can walk to the grocery store whenever you want, and that you can choose what you get to watch on Netflix and what kind of work you want to do. But there are all of these programs running in the background which dictate what you believe is possible, how abundant your life is, and even how much spiritual awakening you get to experience. You're bumping up against these things all the time, and you might not even be aware of it. And for those of you who've been watching for a while, there's more to it than the familiar distortion patterns, something that's just becoming revealed. My name is Karen Cheong, and in this episode of Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, we're going to talk about what embodied sovereignty really is, why it's so important at this time, and how to actually get there.
Embodied sovereignty is an interesting phrase. I'm not sure you can call it a phrase, but, it's an interesting subject.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, sovereignty, and then embodied.
Yeah.
So it looks like in the title that the two of them together, they need to be together somehow.
Yeah.
Right? To mean what you're about to discuss with us.
Yeah.
To mean something impactful. So let's talk about what sovereignty is for you.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole bundle of YouTube videos and conversations that are happening about sovereignty, and it can be political, it can be spiritual, it can be all sorts of kind of stories behind that word.
Yeah.
So let's hear your version of what sovereignty is.
Yeah. I think a lot of people think of sovereignty as freedom.
Mm-hmm.
They think of them as interchangeable, and they are to some degree. And a lot of people think, well, what does that have to do with me? Because here I am, I can go to the grocery store, I could, whenever I want, I can quit my job if I really want to and get a new one. I mean, I can do all kinds of things. So how am I not sovereign, right? Because I can do whatever I want whenever I want. That's the thinking, right? So how am I not free, and why is this even applicable to me? But the thing is, we are not really as sovereign as we think. So a lot of people will think of sovereignty, like I said, as freedom of movement. So, and I'm not saying that you don't have that, because most of us do. You know, we can move about, we can do our things, we can watch TV if we feel like it, we can binge watch Netflix, we can eat ice cream if we want to before dinner, right? Yeah. And so, but I'm not talking about that level of freedom. And I'm talking about a much higher level order of freedom to be able to access something which has been hard for us, which has to do with accessing our limitlessness, the divinity within us. Now, you may ask yourself, well, can't I do that already? I mean, isn't that what we've been doing? Yeah. Haven't we just, been working to release our distortion patterns, to rise in our resonance? Yes, of course. And there's more. So the thing is, the distortion patterns that run through you keep you at a certain level of the limited, right? You think you're free, but really you're conditioned by whatever your lineage thought was possible, the patterns of non-worthiness, the feelings of not being loved. All of that keeps you within a very certain limited experience. And you think you're free, but are you really? Because if that's what is creating your experience, you're not really as sovereign as you think.
Oh, so you're talking like liberation from your cultural and your familial lineage patterns that...
Yeah.
They may be more at a subconscious or unconscious level. That's the level of sovereignty we're talking about here.
That's the beginning.
That's
the beginning. So I feel like, yes, so there's that, which I've talked about before, right? Yeah. So it's like, obviously, if you have all these distortion patterns running, you're not really as sovereign as you think, because they can condition what you believe is possible.
Yes.
So there's that.
So you're basically projecting your life from that foundation of these distortion patterns that you've inherited.
Yes.
Somehow in this physical vehicle that you inhabit.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And so you're talking about the level of sovereignty you're talking about is not only just becoming aware of it and clearing them and freeing them, but now we're moving into another level of sovereignty that you want to bring forth now.
Yeah. So a lot of us will think also that when we are on our spiritual path is, okay, like I'm going to take the example of like, okay, I'm clearing my distortion patterns so that I can have a different level of experience, right? Because a lot of people who've been watching Spherical Luminosity for a while, you guys know that when you release your distortion patterns and you rise in your frequency resonance, your physical world reorganizes around you. Yep. And you get to experience different things, like different levels of synchronicity, different levels of abundance, different levels of inspiration, guidance, like intuitive abilities, all that stuff stuff starts to up level when you release your distortion patterns and your frequency resonance rises.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So this is not a new concept for many of you.
No.
Right?
And lots of clients have had that experience, that exact experience.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's amazing. The level of sovereignty that I'm talking about has to do with something that we've been working towards without realizing it, and really is pivotal in this year of 2025.
Right.
And will continue to unfold after this. I'm not saying this is the only year, and if you miss this year, then you're screwed. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But it's one of the first points in linear time that we're able to start to experience sovereignty, which has to do with what it is that you can access in terms of the limitless in your physical body.
Okay. Yeah, let's break that down a little bit, because you're talking about the limitless.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about the limitless, you are talking about what in particular?
I'm talking about your ability to access yourself at higher levels of orders of consciousness. I'm talking about being able to access more clearly your relationship with pure source, and also to be able to really experience more of the brilliance that you are on that level of the spirit or frequency in your body. So meaning feeling your heart space really starting to expand with your brilliance. Because for a lot of people, they'll have moments, whether it's in living your brilliance, or maybe you've done the Limitless Potential Mastermind, or maybe you've been on one of our retreats, or you've listened to a group frequency calibration, where you feel either like deep expansion or like really like this incredible stillness, or you'll feel your heart expand, but it's like a little moment in time. Sovereignty has to do with being able to experience all that more often in your lived experience, in the embodiment.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you, how is that different then from clearing the distortion patterns and raising your frequency resonance? Where is the difference?
Yes.
How are we accessing something that we were already accessing and saying that it's different?
Different, yes. I love that question, because what I've been trying to lead to is that we have all of these patterns of subjugation that have been running deep within us for a very long time, that have been running to keep us at the limited. Now, if you've been watching any of my YouTube lives or anything like this, and if you haven't, you might want to watch the YouTube live called The Unexpected Twist in 2025, which is the first time we started talking about this, where we started talking about the mutation that happened in our chromosomes, where there was a deliberate fusing of chromosomes 2 and 7. So instead of having 24 chromosomes available to us, which is a base 12, which is what everything on the higher level orders of consciousness are based on, so that's why sacred geometry is always in base 12 instead of 10, our DNA has been corrupted such that instead of being a base 12, which is 24, it's now a base 23, right? Or it's not a base 23, it's just 23, which is not divisible by 12, which keeps us in the limited, in the human. So the thing is, what we're doing now is we're starting to be able to shift ourselves deep at the level of DNA to release these subjugation patterns so we can return to this base 12. Now, you may ask yourself, well, who bloody cares? Like, who cares about the base 12? If you are base 12, meaning divisible by 12, in your body, your experience of the divine, of your connection to pure source, all that stuff at the higher level order of vibration is so much more accessible to you because it's in your body. You don't have to do anything like to try as hard to try and access this thing that that you kind of can feel, and you have to release all this stuff together. And I'm not saying you don't release your distortion patterns, you do, but it's so much easier because the momentum comes from within you physically already.
Yeah. That was a great question. But my question would be, how is this happening now? Why wasn't it happening like 100 years ago, or even like 5 years ago,
or even last year,
exactly? So why now? Because the way you were talking, it's like we're beginning to be able to access at the level of the DNA. Well, how and why and when?
Yes. So this is not just people who are watching Spherical Luminosity, right? This is something that's happening around the world.
Globally and universally.
Universally also, because this time has been predicted for many, many like hundreds of years, if not millennia,
Yeah.
okay, by different native traditions who have been like holding on to these prophecies of what will happen at this time, because we're at a very important cycle shift, meaning there's a 12,000 year cycle.
Yep.
And we're at a point where we are moving from the age of darkness and into the age of light. Okay?
Yeah.
And as we move from the age of darkness, where I mean, if you think about darkness, instead of like evil, like wahaha, I just mean a time when we were asleep.
Mm-hmm.
We were not as conscious. We were not as aware. Where you don't have as much access to the things that are more brilliant, that are as highly resonating. You're more concerned with the mundane,
Survival.
right? And survival.
A little less self, maybe.
Yes,
mode.
exactly. Where you're like, this is mine, and someone might take it from me, and I got to protect it, and I've got to protect the people I love against all these other people. You know, that very us versus them.
Yes.
So the thing is, as you move into the age of light, you start to recognize that we are all one.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really, the idea or the separation of me versus you is just an illusion.
Yeah.
So in order to come into this age of light, there has been these waves of very highly resonating frequencies that are washing through the all that is. As you said, it's not just for humans, and it's not just for Earth. It's for everything. It's not like we're like this special little blob in the multiverses that get to have this thing. Everything is having it. So all beings everywhere get to rise in their resonance, and it gets to happen for us too.
Mm-hmm.
So because we have the momentum of these waves, we at this point in time as humans get to, if you choose to, okay, because you have to choose. Again, it's not that anyone's better than anyone else. You're just like, yeah, I'd like to do that, please. By raising your resonance, you get to surf those waves of highly resonating frequencies, and your consciousness as a result can jump. So we couldn't have done this before because consciousness was not high enough.
Yeah.
But we are at the point in time now, for the first time in 2025, when this window is open, where we can use these waves of frequencies, which are not going to go through the all that is forever, by the way. That's why I said it's like this window. And it's not a scarcity thing. It's just the way it works thing. And so you can use this time to really rise in your frequency resonance. So it's just that we've gotten to this tipping point, finally, that consciousness has risen. Enough of us have released enough of our distortion patterns that we can use this time to continue to expand and to really step into our sovereignty as co-creator of our reality. If you want to begin to release those distortion patterns that keep you from experiencing the embodied sovereignty that we're talking about, click on the link in the description below for your free group frequency calibration. That's where the change really happens.
So what are you going to do that's different?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so we're doing all this work. We have been doing all this work, clearing distortion patterns, and it's been filtering out into the collective, and more and more people are doing it.
Yeah.
So now we're saying that we can do this at the DNA level now. This is not just the emotional, mental body levels. No. This is now at the very structure that creates the physical body that we live in and contains the language of the universe.
Yes.
So you're saying now that you're able to work at that level?
Yes.
And what is it that's... has it changed or is it the same?
It's a version of the same.
Okay.
Okay? Because it's just like it's up-leveling. Mm-hmm. Okay? So to me, as my own frequency resonance rises and what I can access changes. Mm-hmm. Right? Just like for everybody. I'm not different than anyone else.
Yeah.
And so as my resonance has risen, I'm starting to be able to not only work at the DNA level, which is really important.
Yeah.
But also at the spirit body level, which I have for a long time now.
Yeah.
But also at the light body level. Uh-huh. So the light body is a structure around your spirit body which allows you to access yourself at different levels of consciousness. Mm. It's a structure of light. So if anybody's heard about the Merkaba or anything like this, it's really important to have your light body be active in order to rise in consciousness. It's required. Yeah. Okay? You have to. You don't. If you want to rise in a consciousness level, it must be active. Mm-hmm. So what's happening is this really amazing, and it's to be seen yet, right? Because it's still unfolding for me. But from what I'm understanding is this anchoring of the light body through the spirit body, through the physical body, into the DNA. Mm. So the DNA starts to shift and starts to also then evolute up to the light body, right? So you have the light body vibrating at this very high rate, right? It descends in vibration, right? Down to the spirit body, through the body, of course, because now you're coming into form, in through the DNA. Yeah. Then it evolutes up, back, right? So it's a cycle. It's not just it comes down and it stops.
Yeah.
Right? It starts to do this spiral.
Well, this is kind of like your synergistic ascension that
yeah.
you talk about, but it's an internal one now.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. Okay. Yeah, so that's different. So is it still frequency work? Yes. To me, it is.
Yeah.
Is it changing? To me, yes, because that's not been available to me before. We still have to release certain distortions in order for that spiral to be really strong.
Well, I can imagine as you're talking, I'm like I said, it's a complete imagination because I haven't done it yet, but I'm imagining we are a human race. And they say, all the indigenous people, like you say, there was a point in time that we dropped.
Yes.
So surely there must be some sort of trauma in everybody at that level that's being held in our DNA somewhere.
Yes.
So I'm imagining when you begin this new work at this DNA level, we're going to uncover even more stuff.
Yes.
That needs to be cleared.
Yes.
Right?
And as you said, it's held collectively by all humans. So it's not like a we thing. It's not like this little thing where you're like, oh, gee, I have this pattern where I don't know, whatever the thing is, where it's like, I have a tendency to be afraid of being drowned or whatever, right? It's actually this thing held by all humans.
Yeah, so like we sustain it because of that as well, right?
Yeah.
What's going to happen when... I'm getting excited. Sorry. What's going to happen when we, like you say, not just a mental realization, we are embodied and we feel that trauma that has been held by us for this long.
Yeah.
And we release that.
Exactly.
Wow.
So that's the thing. Sovereignty to me also means to be free from fear, right? And I don't mean fearless. Like people always think when I say free from fear, it means like, I will never feel fear ever again. I don't mean the emotion of fear. I mean, like, as humans, if you notice, like, even when you try to manifest or whatever it is that you're trying to dream or you want to step into, you're trying to step into that better thing because you have a fear that something terrible is going to happen or the same thing that's crappy is going to keep happening to you. Do you know what I mean? You have this fear that you're going to miss out. It's going to keep perpetuating. But it's fear ultimately at the same time. And it's like, I don't know that I'm ever going to get to that thing that I hope for.
Yeah.
So fear and scarcity are so intertwined in our... as humans, ability to even conceive of what is possible for us. It drives us. So sovereignty for me, in part, has to do with what happens to fear on that level when we start to become free.
Yes.
When we could become sovereign. So I'm not suggesting that everything is like, a cakewalk and you're never going to fear again. But it's like this weird knowingness within yourself that you also can.
Yeah.
So you might be like, I'm not sure. But at some level, like, I'm still gonna. Like... there's this odd kind of confidence in yourself or trust in yourself, even if you're a little like, at the same time, because, we're human. We can feel all those things at the same time. And when, to me, and I don't know yet, as you said, right? I mean, we're doing this for the first time, really, we're doing this subject, I guess. I don't even know what theme, whatever you call it, in Portland, right? That's the whole thing we're doing this.
That's
this
in June, right?
June, yeah. And the retreat is called Embodying Sovereignty. Holding your power while skillfully navigating the illusion.
Oh.
Because part of skillfully navigating the illusion is to understand, okay, well, you can see fear. You're aware of your own fear. What's happening? What's possible? What's limited from their perspective? What's limited from yours? All of that stuff is really important. But embodying sovereignty means, okay, I understand that I fundamentally am this brilliance. It's not a concept. It's like a knowing within yourself, even if it's not 24/7. It's like this odd trust in it. So it's not you manifesting or being in the world anymore from that same sense of fear that you're not going to be enough, that you're not going to make it, that you're going to somehow miss the boat or screw it up. It changes everything.
It's fascinating because as you're talking, I'm feeling this whole idea that sovereignty involves taking some sort of power back as well. And it sounds obvious, and you've talked to that. But there's like a freedom or choice to be in the illusion or not.
Yes.
When you're talking, that's what it feels like. It's like there may come a time where I can say, no, I'm choosing not to be in the illusion today.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stay in my field or whateverness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when I get into the illusion, I'm going to play.
Yes.
I'm not going to be a subject to the illusion now.
Yeah.
It's going to be a plaything that I get to choose to play.
Yeah.
That's how, just when you're talking, I'm like, I wonder if that's part of the whole sovereignty thing too. I will choose whether I want to be in the illusion today or not.
Yes. Yes. And how deeply. I feel like that's it too. And I feel like, you're a human, and so obviously you're interacting with all different kinds of humans
Yeah.
who are all enmeshed in the illusion to a certain degree. And it's like, okay, well, how am I then with them?
Yeah.
And it's not that you're better, okay? So just to make that super clear, it's more like, oh, this person really believes this or has this perspective or whatever it is that they have. Okay, so I don't necessarily believe those things. And I actually have this distance where I can perceive the illusion. I can perceive them. As you said, how do I play with this?
Yeah.
How is this a dance between me and the illusion? And what can I co-create in this dance with the illusion? It's really fascinating.
Yeah, and I'm wondering too from like a personal level is, I haven't learned this part of humanity yet. I'm going to go in here and dance with this and learn all the things I need to learn from my personal growth right now because I've never had this experience. Oh, let me go in there.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm kind of wondering if that's part of the whole sovereignty as well. I choose to learn this.
Yes.
For this length of time.
Yes, exactly. And I actually feel like we will start to have that experience more and more because I believe that that is really what we came for and we've forgotten.
Yeah.
So really the human experience is to learn. It is to be able to be like, okay, in the embodiment, we forget a whole bunch of things. Okay, so if I forgot that I am infinite, indestructible consciousness, and I really were blinded by the fact that I thought I was finite, what could I learn here with that huge, like, very big assumption, you know?
Yeah.
And, I feel like that's a higher level move in terms of consciousness having an embodied experience. It's like, what do I get to learn when it's this intense and when I believe all these things and everyone's reacting like this, Yeah.
To me, I liken it to like the language, when you learn the first language you've ever learned and like other than your native tongue and you do that first year and it's like, oh man. And then you get to the end and you're like, oh wait, there's so much more to learn. Okay, now I think I'm going to get into grammar a bit more because I don't really understand. Right, let's go in this course and do this course.
Yeah.
I'm kind of imagining myself doing the same thing, I think that's part of that whole sovereign thing, to have that choice.
Yes.
Like you say.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's come back to what you were saying. In Portland, you're going to do this workshop. I'm totally curious. Like, so you've never done this before?
No.
Okay. Oh, of course, I know the answer already. I mean, so what's it going to be like for you when you get there? Do you know what you're going to do?
No, not yet. I wish I did in some ways because then it would give my little S self, my little ego mind, like a little, chart in which to outline. But that's not how it works for me.
Okay, so let me ask the next question then. Have you personally had a taste of or experienced what it is to be in embodied sovereignty?
Yes.
Okay, can you talk to that?
Yeah. So it hasn't been for huge periods of time where it's like hours, for example. But I have had these experiences which are going to sound potentially odd to people, but where I feel my heart just really expand and it feels ecstatic. And whenever I say ecstatic, people always think of sex.
Really?
I don't know why. Okay, so I guess you could go there. I mean, fine if you do.
Yeah.
But it really is this, ecstatic in the sense of this incredible feeling of just the gloriousness of life. And and I'm not doing anything particularly marvelous. I could be doing the laundry and I could be like, I don't know, getting dressed or like, it's never anything like mind blowing when I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But these moments, and then I'll actually start laughing because it's so joyful.
Yeah.
And there's no reason for it. I don't know how long it's going to last for. But in those moments where it is tremendously joyful and the heart is super big and I can feel the field of my heart expanding and the field of that that higher level love just everywhere. In those moments, at the same time as I'm feeling that, I'm really aware of what I'm creating. It's the weirdest thing. It's like, oh, I know that I'm creating this next. And I don't know why I know that.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I'm not thinking it. I'm aware of it. And then it goes away. And sometimes I forget it and sometimes I don't. But I feel like this is a skill that is, it's not about controlling it because it's going to sound like I'm saying you have to control it. But it's more like you become more aware of it.
Yeah.
Like more adept at it in a way.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's what embodied sovereignty is, because in that moment, I am aware of how much I am creating in that moment.
Right.
Right?
Oh, yeah, you could definitely have a different life if you had that awareness running all the time.
You're like, I'm creating all of it.
Yeah, hang on a minute.
Uh-oh. It was like, okay, wait, what do I need to, just like, what's happening? How's this unfolding? What do I need to adjust in terms of my resonance? Can I choose something different? Do I want to stay with what this is?
Yeah.
All that stuff changes because you recognize that you are the one making that choice.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to describe to somebody when you recognize you're the one making the choice. That's what sovereignty really is to me.
Yeah.
And when I say embodied sovereignty, you know it in your body. It's not like this nice little intellectual idea that you have in your head that you really, really, really hope is true.
Now you read 3 books on and now you know you're a co-creator.
Yeah, exactly.
But you don't feel it.
Exactly. You don't feel it at all, and it feels like nothing. It's like, honestly, it's not a thought. It is like this incredibly visceral feeling. Now, I'm not saying everyone's going to have this feeling because everyone's different, right? You might just have this flash of knowingness. You might feel it in your body in some really weird way that you can't explain. I don't know what your experience is going to be. This is my experience. I don't know how mine is even going to develop. But to answer your question, I feel like that's like the beginning. Like the beginning of that possibility for us.
The entrance into that embodied sovereignty.
Yeah.
I know that we've talked about embodied sovereignty as something that we're moving into. It's not something that you switch on and bing, it's there forever kind of thing. All you have to do is say the right words, abracadabra. Right. We have to access that place. Yeah. And that it continues thereafter. So what would be your advice for anybody watching this clip? Where do we start?
Yeah, I think the most important place to start is to really start to address those fear distortion patterns because those are really heavy and they keep you very stuck in the limited and like, oh my God, what if I don't get this? What if I don't get there? What if I'm not enough to be able to get to embodied sovereignty that they're talking about? Blah, blah, blah. All this fear stuff that we have.
As you were speaking, I was imagining what that kind of empowerment would feel like when I knew an embodied state that at every moment I'm the one that's creating the next moment. Not that just some concept, I'm co-creating my life and I better be careful what I think. But I actually could feel, whoa, okay, this next step is totally up to me. That's a whole new meanness, a whole new human.
Yeah, totally.
Wow.
Yeah, I love that you said that actually, because we gave a whole episode, or you and I talked about this very topic of what does it mean to be a new level human? And the reason that came up is because there's so much on the internet right now about like what is a new human, what is the new earth, and a whole bunch of like stuff, and it can be really confusing. So if you'd like to learn more about the potential of being a new human and how to access it, then click here to watch my next video. I'll see you inside.